One of the things that I find amazing, I'm sure you agree, is the human ability to adapt to our environment. And essentially, that is hardwired. And the question is, and the important thing is, are you aware of the aspects of your lifestyle that you are adapting to? So, and I find, and this for me is really important, because in a world where our lives are made so comfortable with the innovation and solutions behind everyday lives, and made, push a button, now you wash your clothes, dry your clothes, and I'm sure it will be soon before we don't even need to iron clothes, because that can now have products that can do that as well. Even the food that we eat can be push button sorted. The process behind all the daily tasks of our lifestyle is now being made so much easier and more comfortable. And I wonder whether this is actually hurting us. So the question to you, and it's a question I'm just going to be putting out there over the next few days, is comfort hurting us or you? And are you aware of the bits of your lifestyle which your body is adapting to, which effectively is making you unhealthy, or creating pain or injury or disease even? So over the next few days, or the next week or so, I'm going to be putting out some videos, and it's going to be posing that question of, is comfort hurting you? And can you make some tweaks to your lifestyle, to the process, and maybe not rewind the clock back 100 years and go back to simple living, but within reason, can we make some tweaks behind our unconscious habits, which effectively is going to change the way we're going to adapt to our environment? Because if you don't take a look at your environment and try and change the environment, then you're not going to change the way we adapt. So the first innovative solution or kind of subject that I'm going to be talking about is the chair. And you may think, well, crazy, what's that going to be? What the hell is he talking about? But let's take a look at the chair and what it does for us, and perhaps what it's not doing for us. Here we go. The chair now is something that we spend the most of our lives in, other than the bed. So it's between the bed lying down and the chairs we spend the most of our position. And it's the position that you're most commonly in that your body will adapt to. And if you think about it, from the moment you get up, you eat, you drive, you commute, you go to work, it's all sat down. Unless you're one of those lucky people that has a stand-up desk. The reason why I'm talking to you today is because the comfort of a chair could be creating quite a lot of problems for people. And it has been said that sitting is the new smoking, because it can create so many kind of biomechanical, postural and health issues. So let's take a look at the seated position and why we adapt to that position. So if I sit down, straight away, our hips are congested. The hamstrings and the hip muscles tend to tighten because they're in a constant shortened position. You're never really opening the hamstring or the calves. The hip is always closed. If I'm looking at the computer here, I'm sat forward. Gravity pulls us forward once the head is drawn forward. And that over time means that we shorten through the front of our body, all the way through the front of our body, and that creates postural deficits. So this is our culture we're talking about in the Western world. The seat is the postural, or the mechanism by which you rest. It's your kind of physiological resting position. So if you go into a doctor's surgery, take a seat, sir. If you go to watch some sport, take a seat, sir. If you go into a pub or restaurant or cinema, take a seat, sir. You don't basically rest. It's not very common for people want to stand, because it's a cultural thing, and therefore we're sat down all the time. If you go to the Eastern world, quite often, as I'm doing here, The resting position, if you can see, is a squat. So you're squatting down. This is a natural way of people to rest, but because people don't spend time in this position, they don't have the mobility around the ankle, around the knee, around the lower back, because they've tightened and adapted to the seat. If you ask somebody to sit on the floor, if you go to Asia, they eat on the floor, they sit on the floor. Therefore, because that's the environment that they're used to, that's the environment that they adapt to. If you ask most people off the street to sit on the floor cross-legged, how many could eat their food sitting down on the floor cross-legged? They just don't have the mobility in their hips and their spine in order to get down to the floor. So here is an example of how comfort is shooting ourselves in the foot, because we think that we're clever and we're going against our natural postural positions. And I think this needs to change. These are the types of things that need to change in order for us to be a healthier society. When you look at comfort, effectively the nervous system is always scanning for discomfort, and it will move you out of a position to avoid discomfort. So if you're sat in a very comfortable position or a seat, the nervous system isn't going to give you feedback that it's uncomfortable. So therefore you're going to stay in the same position. And when we stay in the same position for a long period of time, your body will adapt to that position. So muscles will shorten and tighten, you become immobile because you're used to that position. So in a way, comfort then is kind of down-regulating our nervous system, our feedback system. So one of the ways that you can create more discomfort, which actually gives you more feedback, is to put yourself into an uncomfortable position, which sounds a bit weird. But one of the things I do at home, and this isn't always possible in the workplace, I take it, I can see that, is sit on the floor. So sitting on the floor, I know by watching TV or listening to music, and I'm sat like this, my wrists, for example, are being put into flexion. And after a while, my wrist starts to become uncomfortable. So I then change to another position, and I might sit like this. And then I'm opening my hips, like so. Or if I sit cross-legged, from here, I'm rotating my hips. And after a while, my hips start to get tight. I then shift to another position. So I might go into extension here and watch like this, or read like this. Or I might, after a while, that gets a bit sore, so my body moves position, and then I kneel. And effectively, when we're in an uncomfortable position, rather than staying in the same position, our nervous system basically tells you to move. But being put into a position which is uncomfortable, A, creates mobility, gives you variety of different movements. So therefore you're adapting and you're changing to the environment. And every time that you do it over time, you're going to create more mobility and more diversity in your movement patterns. So instead of just sitting, try sitting or kneeling or cross-legged, or like I showed you at the start, a kind of squat position, or perching on the end of a stool, or using a Swiss ball, or lying on your front, on your tummy whilst working. Effectively, the more positions and more options you have, your nervous system is going to push you out of that position, especially if it's uncomfortable sitting on the floor, for example. If you're not sitting on the floor and you can't do it, spend more time sitting on the floor. So there we go. There's my first thought on, is comfort hurting you? And we've talked about the chair and its problems and the solutions behind it. And tomorrow, or whenever I'm going to put the video out, we're going to be talking about the shoe. So watch this space. Any questions, Let me know. Please like and share. I'll see you soon.